What are some of its underlying assumptions, and also to work through some of these principles, major principles of cultural constitution. And the reason why I want to do these kind of things, because in each of those categories of knowledge or information, there are certain kind of implications for practice. For example, if you don't know exactly what cultural responsive teaching is about, you might be doing some things thinking you're doing cultural responsive teaching, but you're not, so you're wasting effort. I mean, the efforts might be good for something else, but they may not be consistent with what you were planning. So, and that's just kind of one kind of example. The other type of notion is important to try to locate yourself in the domain of cultural responsive teaching in some ways that's manageable, because it can be a complex field, it's engaging, it's demanding, as is teaching. So at some point you have to try to find out all of the possible things that could be done and need to be done in cultural responsive teaching. What can you do in all of that? So principles for practice that guide practice might be a reasonable way to locate and to center yourself in the field, rather than try to center yourself around all of the specific kinds of details and factual information, at least initially. Okay, so to begin with, what is cultural responsive teaching? You can think about it as teaching to, for, and through ethnic, racial, and cultural diversity. To, for, and through. Now, by using those three, whatever parts of whatever that is, though they are, I don't know this stuff. Again, there's a message. If you're teaching, if cultural responsive teaching means you're teaching to ethnic, racial, and cultural diversity, that means the student population that you're trying to serve. Right? If you're teaching through ethnic, racial, and cultural diversity, that means trying to use those frames of references as filters or as leverages or as resources to help you do whatever you want to do in whatever else you're teaching. Okay? And if you're teaching for ethnic, racial, and cultural diversity, that means preparing your students to be much more competent and comfortable. I don't like that word, but nonetheless I'll use it. Competent and comfortable in relating and interacting in a pluralistic world, a culturally pluralistic world. And that's it's not even a creeping, it's a galloping reality, not just in the United States, but globally. That, people just don't live in these little cocoons that we once lived in. But now we live in all different kinds of racial, cultural, linguistic, social variability. And if students don't know how to do that, they do some strange kinds of things that are inhumane, disrespectful, and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically then what we mean by cultural responsive teaching. So in a sense then, you could capstone this by saying cultural responsive teaching is using knowledge about, that is your knowledge, about the heritages and experiences of various kinds of diverse populations to help you teach more effectively. Whether or not you wanted to teach math or science or reading or computer science, PE, all of those kinds of things should be filtered through these lenses about cultural responsive teaching. For the simple fact is that because kids learn in different ways, and many of those different ways in which they learn are influenced by their cultural socialization and their heritage. So in that case then, you could say cultural responsive teaching is a moral endeavor because it's the right thing to do for diverse populations. Right? And that's just, if you believe in it, it's non-negotiable. That you don't do it some of the time, or when it's convenient, or when you have some extra time. You do it all of the time, because of the fact is that you are going to be working with students who are different. And those differences, you can't avoid it. There are just no cloned human beings floating around called students. They are fundamentally different, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that they're different. Part of their difference is their human legacy. That